Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really jumping into something fascinating. We're exploring some truly impressive Crusader castles, the ones scattered across the Eastern Mediterranean and the Middle East. If you're looking for a shortcut to getting your head around these incredible historical sites, well, you're in the right place. We're drawing from our source list 10 most impressive Crusader castles. And these aren't just piles of old stones, are they? They're genuine strongholds, built, fought over fiercely. We're talking 11th to 13th centuries mainly, each one just packed with amazing stories.
Absolutely. And that's really why they stick with us, I think. They're remarkable examples of medieval engineering, military thinking. And their stories, they reveal so much about history, about power shifting back and forth, the legacies that last. What's really striking, too, is just how spread out they were geographically. Across modern-day Israel, Turkey, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, Cyprus, too. Each one is like a physical piece of this huge, complex puzzle of history.
Okay, so to really get a feel for the Crusaders' ambition, their strategy,
hmm
we need to look at these fortresses they built. They were the foundation. Let's kick off in Israel. Tell us about Belvoir Fortress.
Construction started back in 1168, right?
Yeah.
Sits on this hill south of the Sea of Galilee. It's supposed to be one of the best preserved Crusader castles in Israel. And Israel has more of these castles than anywhere else, which I found kind of surprising. And the design itself, that symmetrical double wall system, pretty clever stuff.
Oh, very clever. And that deep moat. It wasn't just about defense, although obviously that was key. The way it integrates with the landscape is probably a big reason it survived so well, much better than many others. And yet you mentioned it wasn't just soldiers. The source mentions about 50 knights, maybe 450 soldiers.
And their families, staff too.
Right, families and staff, so a whole little community living inside those walls.
That community angle is interesting. Suggests more than just a temporary military base, maybe? More like long-term settlement? It does imply that, yeah. A focus perhaps on making it sustainable inside the fortress. But what really jumps out with these early ones, like Belvoir, is the sheer scale
Yeah.
and how fast they went up. If we hop over to Jordan, you've got Kerak Castle. Now, that's one of the biggest in the whole Levant region. They started building that around the 1140s. A guy named Pagan, who is butler to Folk of Jerusalem, the Crusader king then. The Crusaders actually called it Crac des Moabites.
Crack de Moabites.
Oh, yeah. And putting up something that immense, that quickly, it really tells you how critical it was for them to establish control, to solidify their hold on these new states.
That massive scale, yeah, you can see the strategic need. But what happens when the fighting stops? Or, moves on? Yeah. So let's get Bodrum Castle in Turkey. That one's got a really unexpected modern life, hasn't it? Built a bit later, started in 1402 by the Knights Hospitaller. They were a major powerhouse, those guys.
Yeah.
But now, it's a museum for underwater archaeology.
It's incredible, isn't it? It really makes you think about how these old places find new purposes today. Bodrum's a brilliant example of that evolution from, military fortress to cultural hub, and it connects us to even older stories, things pulled from ships that sank maybe 3,000 years ago,
Yeah.
all inside these medieval walls. It's just a fantastic way to repurpose history, keeps it alive.
From repurposing to just sheer size. We have to talk about Carc des Chevaliers in Syria. It gets called the largest Crusader castle in the world, one of the most important medieval castles still standing. What made it such a defensive marvel? Was it just huge, or was there more to it?
Oh, it was more than just size, much more. It was really a masterclass in defense for its time. Carc du Chevalier used things like sophisticated concentric walls, an inner wall much higher than the outer one.
Ah, right. So attackers were caught in between.
Exactly, a real killing zone. And they had this revolutionary design that glacis and counterscarp, basically a smooth slope around the base. Made it incredibly hard for siege engines to get close or do much damage. Now, the site itself was old. There was a Kurd settlement there in the 11th century. But then in 1142, the Count of Tripoli gave it to the Knights Hospitaller, and they held it right up until 1271.
Wow. And speaking of sites with deep history, just near Carc des Chevaliers is the citadel of Salah ed-Din, also in Syria, named after Saladin, the famous Muslim leader. This place sounds less like one castle and more like layers of history stacked up.
That's a great way to put it. It wasn't just one build. It was Arabs, Byzantines, Crusaders, all fighting for it, all adding to it over centuries. The Byzantines fortified it way back around the year 1000. They built these incredibly thick walls, like 5 meters thick.
5 meters.
Yeah, designed to withstand early siege weapons, stop attackers tunneling under. Then the Crusaders came along and basically optimized it. They dug this huge eastern moat, built a massive keep 24 meters high.
Gave him a commanding view, I bet.
Absolutely, a final strong point. Plus, smaller towers, squares, stables. The works. There are even ruins of an old church that both the Byzantines and Crusaders probably used. So this constant layering, it just screams strategic importance, doesn't it? The architecture itself tells the story of centuries of conflict, a physical timeline.
It really does. Seeing how they literally build on each other's work.
Hmm.
Amazing. Okay, let's stick with strategy, but think about geography. Some castles are all about location, 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 like Arsuf or Apollonia in Israel. It's an ancient city north of Tel Aviv, right on a cliff over the Mediterranean. You can just picture the view, the control it gave them over the sea lanes.
Definitely. And that highlights that timeless value of high ground coastal positions. It's a constant in military history. Another one like that, though maybe with a more complicated recent story, is Beaufort Castle in Lebanon. The name itself, Beaufort, just means beautiful castle, and it is, position-wise. King Fulk took it in 1139, but then it just changed hands constantly. Saladin got it in 1189.
Then the Crusaders took it back.
They did, in 1240. Sold it to the Knights Templar, another big military order, in 1260. But then they lost it again just 5 years later to Sultan Baybars, the Mamluk leader. What's really striking, though, is how its location kept it relevant, even very recently. Our source mentions its role in the modern Middle East conflict, used by the PLO, apparently, to fire rockets into Israel, then captured by Israel in '82 in the Battle of the Beaufort. It was actually an Israeli military post until they left South Lebanon in 2000.
Wow, a 12th century castle being fought over, used as a base, in the late 20th century. That's kind of mind-blowing.
It really shows these places aren't just relics. Their geography, their inherent advantages can keep them strategically important across centuries, even millennia.
That continuity is just incredible. Okay, let's wrap things up with a few more key sites, including a couple on Cyprus. First, Colossi Castle. Also strategically vital, this one. But it had this unique side hustle, right? Sugar.
Yeah, sugar. That kind of unexpected for knights, maybe. But Colossi had facilities to produce sugar, and sugar was a huge export for Cyprus back in the Middle Ages. Big money. The original castle might have been built around 1210, maybe by Franks and Hospitallers. The castle we see now was built by the Hospitallers in 1454, though the Templars were there for a while too.
Knights and sugar plantations.
Okay, it's that mix, again, military and economic power. Which brings us nicely to Chateau Pellerin, or Atlit Castle, back in Israel. This one was started by the Knights Templar, 1218, during the Fifth Crusade. Huge place. Designed, get this, to hold up to 4,000 troops during a siege. The logistics alone, incredible.
4,000, wow.
Yeah. And it has this poignant historical marker. It was the very last Crusader outpost in the Holy Land. They finally evacuated it between August 3rd and 14th, 1291. Amazingly, it stayed mostly intact for centuries until an earthquake hit it in 1837. And today, parts of it are used as a training area for Israeli naval commandos.
Still in military use, in a way.
In a way, yeah. And just quickly, the last one on our list, Kyrene Castle in Cyprus. Richard the Lionheart actually captured it in 1191 on his way to the Third Crusade. Purely military function, really. Though what you see mostly today is a 16th century rebuild over the original Crusader foundations.
Okay, so these last few really tie it all together, don't they?
Yeah.
You've got the big military orders, Hospitallers, Templars. You've got the surprise economic angle like Colossi Sugar, and that enduring strategic value right up to modern military training at Atlit.
Exactly. They give us this really tangible window into medieval life, war, economics, the whole complex picture of the region. So what's the takeaway? I mean, these aren't just ruins. They're living history, in a sense, testaments to ingenuity, conflict, and the enduring power of place.
That idea of place, of the physical remnants still shaping things today. You really feel that with these castles. It's like they're still standing guard, maybe, but over stories now for us to uncover. So our journey through these incredible Crusader castles, it really shows how they blend ancient history with this relevance that just keeps going. Whether they're ruins, museums, or even still connected to military life, they are these solid links back to a really pivotal time, telling stories of ingenuity, yes, but also conflict, resilience.
And that does leave you with something to think about, doesn't it? How do these ancient fortresses built purely for defense, for control, how do they still function as symbols, as sites of strategic importance, even if in different ways? It's worth pondering how these physical echoes of the past keep shaping the present, reflecting these ongoing stories of power, survival, and change long after the original builders are gone.
A really powerful thought to end on. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Crusader castles. We hope you feel a bit more informed, maybe even inspired to dig deeper into these amazing historical connections yourself.